I don't understand that
undocumented immigrant.
I'm saying
whether
the things he was calling out about
undocumented immigrant or a U.S. citizen who's the perpetrator.
Here's
the bottom line is somebody has died.
What he tweeted out today is horribly racist. And I say this as somebody that gets told the same thing over and over again. Go back to where you came from. I can't tell you how many times I open up social media and it says, go eat a burrito and go back to Mexico because racists are so stupid.
And then the camera panned to Rashida Tlaib, who appeared to be mouthing KKK. And then again, this entire speech was actually pretty unifying. I think Donald Trump's superpower is positioning himself as the common sense guy.
Two people who lost their lives on the streets of America at the hand of federal agents.
One who tried to run over.
But how do you not even, you can do your commentary all you want or, critique, but how do you not mention?
It went so well in Minnesota that the president sidelined his secretary, skipped her in the cabinet meeting, replaced her with Tom Homan, who then pulled everybody out. So yeah, it worked real well that they abandoned it and left. That's number one.
That's made up. He's making that number up and conflating numbers.
We don't know.
That is no.
We don't know. There's maybe 20 people who
we do know because ICE has put out numbers. We actually do know that that's not true. It is a lie.
Let's just be honest right now. You felt that tension immediately, didn't you? That wasn't policy debate. That wasn't respectful disagreement. That was raw exposure. The second Anna Navarro called it horribly racist, the entire mask slipped. Because here's the thing, when someone says go back to where you came from, that's not policy. That's not border security. That's identity politics at its ugliest. And what's amazing, actually not amazing, predictable, is how fast certain pundits rush to defend it. Suddenly, it's strategy. Suddenly, it's unifying. Suddenly, we're gaslighting the entire country into believing up is down. So the real question is this: are we watching a serious political defense, or are we watching people twist themselves into knots to excuse the inexcusable? Stick around, because it only gets worse. And if you think that was intense, we're just getting started. Let me know in the comments if you already see where this is going.
Ugly State of the Union clash. Well, it just got a little uglier because now President Trump is escalating his fight with Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Both had begun shouting when Trump challenged Democrats to stand for Americans while he was speaking about illegal immigration and fraud in Minnesota. Now, in a post today, Trump said that Omar and Tlaib screamed uncontrollably and had the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people. He likened them to lunatics and suggested that they be institutionalized. Then he added, quote, "We should send them back to where they came from as fast as possible." Vice President J.D. Vance also got in the war of words.
They were all looking around for cues from their colleagues because they didn't have the courage to stand on their own. And that, more than anything, Bill, is the saddest commentary on the Democratic Party, that not only will they not stand for the idea that Americans should come first, they won't even have the courage of their convictions. They lean on the person to their left and their right rather than actually have some conviction.
But Omar says that she has no regrets.
And I think many people look at that moment when the president says it is our responsibility to protect Americans, and he does not acknowledge the fact that two Americans, two of my constituents, two of our neighbors were killed. And it was important for me to just remind the American people that the president and his administration was responsible for killing two American citizens.
Congressman Moskowitz, you were in the room last night, right? Was that moment what Donald Trump ultimately wanted and what perhaps your Democratic leadership wanted to avoid?
Oh, yeah, no, the president clearly came in with a strategy to do that. Right, his strategy was to try to rage bait people into that fight. He wanted that, and he got it. Look, ultimately, he's not deporting two members of Congress, just like he didn't lock up Hillary, even though that was chanted in arenas, around the country. So, look, he can't fix his poll numbers. He can't turn around the fact that he's underwater on the economy, underwater on immigration, the two issues that helped get him elected. So what he's going to try to do is he's going to try to fight to the point where he tries to make us not an option, right? He wants to just bring us down with him to the hope that that might help him somehow survive the midterms. This is the new strategy. He met with his pollsters. They saw where everything is. They can't turn around their stuff. They've ruined it in the first year. So the strategy is to try to bring everybody down in order to survive the midterms.
So Rashida Tlaib responded to Trump. She said, can't take two Muslims talking back and correcting him, so now he's crashing out. And then she used the hashtag President Majnoon, which means crazy or insane in Persian.
Yeah, I mean, she also got what she wanted, which was a mistake, I think, for the Democrats to play into that. I actually agree with the congressman. I think the president was setting up Democrats in a really simple and easy way. They shouldn't have fallen for it. It seems pretty easy to stand up and say, actually, no, I support American people first. That is where I stand. And we can have a nuanced conversation afterwards if you want about illegal immigration. But they walked into that trap because it was so easy to set.
Well, but that's not true. I mean, I stand for...
Most Democrats did not stand.
I stand for Americans over non-citizens, and so do all of my colleagues. But just because... it's not the Galactic Senate. Just because the emperor says rise doesn't mean I get up. Like I'm a different. You rose sometimes, I'm a different branch of government. I rose for the heroes that were in the gallery, not because the president.
But not for the other point. I mean, you rose because, and thank you for rising. I think in those cases that this is an easy moment to be united, whether it's around Team USA or it's around any of the people who were featured there. But that's sending a message that you agree with the statement or the sentiment, and you chose not to stand.
Well, I'm sure if Joe Biden told Republicans to rise, they would have leapt from their seats.
But to that point, doesn't that happen at every single State of the Union address? The president says something innocuous. The party that is the opposite party doesn't stand. That happens every single year.
Yeah, but I don't feel like
this.
I don't feel like these shouting matches used to happen. I mean, they started happening maybe that in my memory with Joe Wilson under Obama. You know, I don't like Donald Trump. I don't support Donald Trump, but I am an institutionalist, and I think that there is a pomp and circumstance and gravitas to something like the State of the Union. Does he use it to lie? Yes. Does he use it to divide? Does he use it to attack immigrants? Yes. But that doesn't mean that that two congresspeople should be in this shouting match. And look, what he tweeted out today is horribly racist. And I say this as somebody that gets told the same thing over and over again. Go back to where you came from. I can't tell you how many times I open up social media and it says, go eat a burrito and go back to Mexico, because racists are so stupid, they don't realize there's more than one country in Latin America, and I'm not from Mexico. Also, I don't eat burritos. I like tacos. But the fact that what he said is racist and it is horrible, and it's, you know, and it emboldens and it strengthens, empowers racism.
All right. Pause it right there, because this is where the hypocrisy explodes. Notice the pattern? When Trump throws gasoline on the fire, it's called strategy. When Democrats react, it's called falling into a trap. When he tells elected officials to go back, it's branding. When they respond, it's disrespect. Do you see how the rules only run in one direction? And here's what's wild. Anna isn't even making some radical argument. She's asking a basic question. How does this help Americans? Lower grocery prices, healthcare access, housing. And instead of answering that, we get culture war, smoke bombs, rage bait, manufactured outrage. Because division is easier than delivery. It's easier to point fingers than to pass policy. It's easier to yell illegal alien than explain why costs are still high. That's not leadership. That's distraction. And the panel knows it. You can see it. They pivot, they deflect, they reframe, but they never actually confront the core issue. Why does the most powerful person in the country keep choosing division as the opening move? If you're watching this thinking, this feels intentional, that's because it is. Politics of provocation, outrage as oxygen. Tell me in the comments, is this strength or is this insecurity dressed up as toughness? Because there's a difference.
My question is, how does it help American citizens to have the President of the United States and two congresspeople in a pissing match over stupidity? How does it help them have lower grocery prices? How does it help him have access to health care, access to housing? And actually, I think it's, you talk about Donald Trump goading them into this. I think this is really stupid by Donald Trump. I mean, most people use the State of the Union as a launching pad to then go out and sell their agenda and try to have it be a good moment for them. And instead, he's out there in the, in the bottom of the gutter, fighting and being a racist pig. Why?
Can I just ask this question? Is it asking too much to expect the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, to set the tone in the room for the State of the Union?
Yes, it's asking too much.
Okay, but
it's asking too much.
It had to be awful tough. I talked to a lot of members of Congress about attending versus not attending. Both of the Congresswomen who the President, the Commander-in-Chief, have been after for a while now.
Yeah, that's true.
Were in the room, in their seats, on behalf of the people that they represent. I served as a law enforcement officer for a lot of years, and to even ask or make a statement that you need to protect this group first over another group. When I was on the street, if somebody needed help, I didn't check their citizenship before I helped them. So the president started off trying to divide, which he does so well, the nation, right? And you want to talk about protecting Americans? That's exactly what Ilhan Omar was doing, talking about 2 U.S. citizens who were killed under very questionable circumstances in her district.
Is it fair for her to raise that? I mean, Trump is asking about protecting Americans. Is it fair for her to raise the 2 Americans who were killed?
Well, I think Trump's entire speech was actually pretty unifying. I think Donald Trump's superpower is positioning himself as the common sense guy who's advocating for positions that the vast majority of Americans want. And there was one moment at the beginning where he invited the USA hockey team, and of course the crowd went wild chanting USA, USA, and then the camera panned to Rashida Tlaib, who appeared to be mouthing KKK. And then again, you had another moment where Trump says, stand up if you want to support American citizens over illegal aliens. And instead, Ilhan Omar is screaming and heckling the president. And those are the best kind of sound bites and visuals that the GOP can have for the midterms, because a lot of people might not like Donald Trump and might be kind of hemming and hawing. And then they look at the alternative and they say, oh, well, this really angry woman, gosh, I don't know about her. So that's what Trump set out to do.
But that was my question.
Highlight the 80-20 issues.
In response to his own...
Even the robot knows how sexist the Republicans are. Incredible.
Own question. Is it fair for the Democrats to respond, why, yes, we do care about American citizens, including 2 that were killed.
Yes, it is fair, but not in that venue.
But
it is fair, but not at that
me
moment.
That the President of the United States did not even mention the 2 U.S. citizens that were killed in Minnesota. How do you do the State of the Union, because you care about Americans so much, and not even mention the 2 people who lost their lives on the streets of America at the hand of federal agents?
One who tried to run over.
But how do you not even? You can do your commentary all you want, or critique. But how do you not mention that 2 people died in that environment? And the president was one of the most unifying speeches. The president who said, "Look at the Democrats, aren't they crazy?" He obviously does not understand that when he won election, he is supposed to represent all people.
When you go through some of the moments he went to, right, he pointed to a little girl, Delilah, who was killed by an illegal alien, miraculously came back. She was there with her dad. When you have Democrats who won't stand and applaud her recovery, yeah, I think that's crazy.
Sadly, people are killed in America every day. Sadly. And the majority of them are killed by U.S. citizens. So whether an undocumented immigrant,
I'm saying whether it's an
undocumented immigrant or a U.S. citizen who's the perpetrator, the bottom line is somebody has died or someone has been
One died as a result
injured.
of bad policy that was in place for 4 years, allowing people to come into this country unvetted illegally. And if we had border policies that actually worked, those people wouldn't be here and those deaths would not have occurred. That's the difference. So when you can point directly to policy, I think that's obviously well within the scope of any president, Democrat or Republican.
Yeah. By the way, it went so well in Minnesota that the president sidelined his secretary, skipped her in the cabinet meeting, replaced her with Tom Homan, who then pulled everybody out. So yeah, it worked real well that they abandoned it and left. That's number one. Number two is, look, Donald Trump there's a lot of verbs and adjectives to describe. Unifying is not one of them. He doesn't even think he's unifying. That's not his strategy.
Two-thirds of the people who watched the speech thought it was very positive.
Well, actually,
and they liked
20 years of
and I think that's right.
Listen,
that's right.
And he patently, bold-faced lied about illegal immigrants and criminality. He said that the man who had killed the Ukrainian woman in Charlotte, North Carolina, Irina, was an undocumented immigrant who had been let in by Biden. That was a lie.
That's
He's a
not
U.S.
true.
citizen. He was born in North Carolina.
You're right. He said, but it was another policy failure that led to him killing
That was
her.
purposeful, him using illegal immigrants as the boogeyman. He said 12,000 murderers had been allowed in by Joe Biden. That's made up. He's making that number up and conflating
We don't
numbers.
know.
That is
We don't know. There's maybe 20 people who
we
came
do
across
know
the
because
southern border.
ICE has put out numbers. We actually do know that that's not
We
true.
do
It is a
know.
lie. Listen, he lied over 20 times. Daniel Dale from CNN has done the fact checking, and a lot of those lies were about immigration. He said Maduro opened up the prisons and the insane asylums. There is no evidence, zero, that Maduro did that. Castro did it in 1980. But there is zero evidence that Maduro did it in the last few years.
This is kind of the whole point. Is you're literally defending Maduro in
I am not
Venezuela right
defending
now.
Maduro. I am telling you the guy you say is unifying is a pathological liar.
I don't think it's defending Maduro to just point out that what Trump
She's
said
an
about
idiot.
Maduro is not true, okay? That's not a defense of Maduro, it's just a defense of
Bobby, he's
facts.
so unifying. I feel unified. Don't you feel unified? I mean, I feel so unified that the president, he's just unifying everything. He's just painting us.
We are
with
being brought together at every moment of every day.
we're just dripping.
All right, next for us.
Let's land this plane. What we just watched wasn't just a debate about immigration. It was a debate about tone, truth, and what kind of country we want to be. Because here's the uncomfortable reality: when go back to where you came from becomes normalized political rhetoric, we've lowered the bar, not just for politicians, for all of us. And the defense, it's strategy, it's optics, it's midterm positioning. Think about how cynical that is. We're not arguing whether it's right. We're arguing whether it works. That tells you everything. Here's what really stood out. Every time someone brought up facts, crime statistics, citizenship status, documented lies, the response wasn't correction. It was deflection. It was volume. It was attitude. Because outrage travels faster than accuracy. But here's the problem with that playbook. Eventually people notice. Eventually voters ask, okay, but what are you actually doing for me? Not who you insulted, not who you baited, not who you triggered. What did you fix? And if the answer keeps being cultural theatrics instead of tangible results, that strategy starts looking less like strength and more like smoke and mirrors. Now, whether you agree with Anna Navarro or not, whether you love Trump or can't stand him, one thing should be obvious. This level of division is intentional. It's cultivated. It's weaponized, and it's profitable politically. But is it sustainable? That's the real question. Because you can rally a base with anger. You can energize a crowd with resentment. But governing a country, that requires more than applause lines and social media jabs. So I'll leave you with this. When leaders speak, they set the temperature of the room. If the temperature keeps rising, eventually something burns. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think this was strategic, brilliance, or reckless division? And where does it go from here? Let's talk about it. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Hit like if you want more breakdowns like this. Subscribe if you haven't already. And tell me in the comments, was this leadership or was this calculated chaos?